want to say thank you to the listeners and viewers worldwide. This is a new show. It's called the Eldridge Henderson Real News Show. Organize, don't criticize. I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that this show will be able to give you a strong view on how to change your life, your status, your family, and your community starting in 30, 60, and 90 days if you use a new plan that's called the Eldridge Henderson Salvation Plan. And this plan will be giving you a summary view of 5 different areas of activity that you can get involved in that can give you status as a real American, as a real African worldwide. I'm going to be considered, and have been for many years, a race man. Listen to me now, a race man. I'm concerned about black people worldwide, anywhere they're in the world, whether they're the majority of the population. They ought to be controlling 5 areas of activity from birth to death. Those areas are education and training, religion, principles of leadership, economic development, and politics. Everything else can be found under those 5 areas of activity. And if black people worldwide start practicing these 5 activities from birth to death in areas where they are in the majority, the human enemies of mankind, and thus other folks throughout the world, will love them to the point where they will want to come and talk to them and be with them and figure out a way to de-elevate them and put them back in that status that they just lost, the status of being a member of the permanent underclass, the status of being a reject in his own country, in his own nation. And that's why the Eldridge Henderson Real News Show, Organize, Don't Criticize, will emphasize organization. If you're not organized, ladies and gentlemen, someone else will organize for you, and it'll be against you. It'll be for their good, not yours. And if you criticize the human enemies of mankind, those enemies will love you because they will be proud that you're doing everything you can to talk about them, to what I call disorganize their views. And they will love you because they say you are wasting your time criticizing me while I'm planning to destroy you. So this is what I'm going to do today. As an introductory show, I have 3 guests. 2, by the way. The third one will be in later if they decide to come in. And we are going to introduce the guests. They will do their own introduction. And we will just give a summary concept of these 5 areas that I will be talking about for the next 7 years. This is a 7-year program, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm saying if you don't control these 5 areas of activity, starting on the local level, where you're in the majority, any precinct, any county, any city, any state, or any nation worldwide, you are going to be relegated to a position that's already in your favor, and that is the pecking order position number 10 at the bottom in all the people of the world. Right now, today, black people are considered number 10 in the pecking order economically, socially, and politically. No one, no nation, no group love black people because they know they have that inner power to be dominant. And that's why they keep them relegated to a position of non-combat if they can. And that's why I want my guests here to introduce themselves. And we'll be exchanging ideas here this evening about some of these 5 areas of activity, and we will do something that is a little different. We're going to talk about problems. We're going to talk about who created the problem, who benefited, who suffered, and then we will be talking about solutions to these problems. And the last thing we're going to discuss will be how we can keep these problems going forward for the next 200 to 300 years, so black people worldwide will be dominant again as they were for about 2,000 years. That's what it is. So my first guest will be Mr. Curtis Williams, and I want you to tell the listeners and the viewers, sir, something about you. Start anywhere you want, and let us know how you are going to contribute to the, what I call, rebuilding of the new black man in America, in the world, and how you can help them move to where they need to be in the next 7 years. Let's see what's on your mind.
Well, I want to thank you first, Dr. Henderson, for inviting me on your show. Excuse me. It's a great honor to be here with you. By the way, I'm Curtis Williams, Project Humanity founder, United America Project CEO. How I plan on helping the people of color move forward, I'm going to have to say with a different mindset. I would like to kind of challenge us to not be like everyone else. And what I mean when I say challenge us to be not like everyone else, you have all the groups that have grouped up and they're seemingly protecting or taking care of their own. But when I look at the world as a whole, how does it look? It looks like groups are taking care of their own, and as a whole, there's a mess. So we have all this division, which is based on race or religion or socioeconomic status. But what we don't have is a God-conscious individual mindset, whereas we see ourselves as humans, a human race, and not as black or white or Hispanic or
Mr.
Native.
Williams,
Yes, sir.
I have to intervene.
Intervene on.
I will intervene and tell you outright that it's all about race in America and in the world. It's all about domination in America, in the world. If you don't look at your race as the most important race or group in the world and make an effort to pool your resources, train your own leaders, you will always be trying to do like other folks and get with them. That is a way to destroy yourself, sir. You don't understand that?
I'm going to disagree, because if you look at right now, where we are right now, how is that working out for you?
Well, because they are not using the Henderson Salvation Plan that I mentioned and going to get in detail later on, to show people that there is a process that one will have to use to get where they need to be. First, they have to organize.
Okay.
Number 2, they have to look at areas where they're in the majority on the precinct level, on the city level, on the county level, on the state level, on the national level, and rule from birth to death in those 5 areas of activity, and that will bring on that so-called integration that it appears that you are concerned about. Integration has not worked anywhere in the world at any time, even when Jesus walked the earth. Never. It has not worked.
Well,
there's always
if we're talking about Jesus, we're talking about books, we're talking about a history given to us. That's what we're talking about. Now, I spoke to an 85-year-old man who lives around the corner from my mother, and he expressed to me how at one time there were white natives, Hispanic-looking natives, and natives that were my color, all living in America, all living together.
Hold on, Mr. Williams.
Yes, sir.
Now, we're not going to be combative on this show unless it's necessary.
Now, we can...
Now, there have been a lot of people forced to live together in America and in the world.
I'm not talking about forced. I'm talking about before the Europeans arrived. That's what I'm talking about. Harmony in America before you got your history book, before they burned the books and started typing them out and told you where you from, before that. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, now this man, is he alive today?
Yes, he is.
Where did he get his information?
Well, from what he was telling me, his grandmothers and grandfathers were telling him about it. He grew up knowing that in Pocahontas, Mississippi, that's where they went to family reunions. My mother even confirmed it. So if people who look like me were going to Pocahontas to a Indian burial ground for family reunions, they didn't just start doing that in that generation.
Well,
this was a generational
I'm familiar
thing.
with Pocahontas, Mississippi.
Okay.
There was an enclave where a few blacks that were originally mulattoes, and you know what a mulatto is, that eventually married a black slave or a black free person or an Indian that was a reject from from the reservation. And they had to live together because they didn't have integrated society at that time in Mississippi and in Pocahontas. So you had to live in your environment and pretend that you like your neighbor. Now, I'm just going to tell you right now, I want you to hold down on this because I'm going to have to talk to Mr. Socrates. I'm going to have to talk to Mr. Socrates because you are at the point now where you have been brainwashed by an old gentleman that's talking about something that's in only one part of the state, in an area where the mulattoes were ruling for a while, and now they have lost that area, all except a few families up in what we call Pocahontas. I'm familiar with that area.
Well, I was just mentioning Pocahontas because, you know, my family's from South Mississippi, and there's businesses, ownership, land, property that go back generations. So it's strange to me how you think it's just one group.
I don't think it's one group.
What history shows where there are multiple accounts of the mixing and confusing of the natives that were already
here. Didn't I just tell you that, Mr. Williams? You have been brainwashed through this old man, and there are enclaves where you have these mulattoes, the Indians and the blacks living together, the free blacks, the former slaves, all living together because they were not permitted to live in an integrated society. Now, I want you to hold on. You're about to
hold on, because you're about to make me ask you a couple questions too here, Doc. I'm going to be respectful and pass to the half-native here.
Listen to me now. I don't want to get to the point where you won't feel welcome on the Old Henderson Real News Show because I don't criticize people.
I do. That's what I do.
I don't criticize. I believe in telling people that they need to organize themselves, organize their minds, have a plan, have an agenda, have a timeline, and then they can do something, sir.
Well, you just had to excuse me, Dr. Henderson, if I read different books than you read and talked to different people than you talked to, and I have a different understanding than you seem to express, whereas the books that were typed out seem to reflect what you're talking about, whereas my conversations with our elders seem to differ. So,
well, those conversations, sir, are what I call pig-meated, where you just have a little here and a little there. That's like putting a grain of sugar
so they don't know their grandparents and their family history?
Of course, there are a few exceptions like that. I told you before, most black folks want to be anything other than black. They want to be white. They want to be Indians. They want to be Puerto Ricans. They want to be anything. So when I'm going to have to...
So you really think that they took those little boats and brought 40 million people over here? You really believe that?
Of course not.
So where they came from then?
It was...
You know the size of the boat, right?
I know.
Okay, I did a estimation of the boat sizes compared to a speedboat. The light-skinned people need to figure out how they got over here.
Well, I already know how they got here. That's why
they were already here in North America.
Mr. Socrates, ladies and gentlemen, is our guest today. He is a great talk show host. He is a businessman in Mississippi, in the nation, in the world. And he's also a communication specialist and a media tycoon. And he is here, and we're proud to have him And Mr. Socrates, I want to tell you, sir, we just heard our wonderful partner, Mr. Williams. He is a great man, has a lot of knowledge, but I think he's been confused because of one man, one little paragraph that someone read in a book. And now I want you to tell me your version and a little about yourself so we can see which way is best for people to gain respect as individuals and collectively as a group.
Dr. Henderson, it's always good to be in your presence. You know, I thank you for having me as a guest on your show. And I'd just like to say to you and say to the viewers out there that it's tremendously important that we get to the root cause of our issues and our problems today so that we can form the correct solutions. You know, if an unidentified problem or if we have disagreement on what the problem is, it's almost tantamount to the story in the Bible when the people were trying to build a tower to heaven. The only way that God could stop all of that foolishness was to give them different languages. And so they got where they couldn't talk to one another, so therefore the tower never got built.
That
Probably wasn't going to get built anyway.
It wasn't.
Right, but the lack of a collective understanding as to what the problem is contributes to the position and the condition that we're in and makes it difficult to form a solution. Now, I've studied your work, and I appreciate your work in this community and across this country. And your advocacy over the 5 plans that black folk need to put in place is real and solid, and you can't go wrong with that. Where you are in the majority, you ought to control 5 elements of life. And you've said that, and I've studied and watched you. You've said that over the years. And the reason that you say where you are in the majority, because you realize that where you're not in the majority, you will have too many people that have inserted themselves into the decision-making ability of the group, and it will be impossible for you to form a plan.
And, sir, you have to keep in mind that is the way it's supposed to be. If you're in a position where you can take over and take one's civil rights, economic rights, political rights away without their participation, you're going to do it. But if you control those areas, you have your own leaders, you have your own economic development strategists, you are the politician, you are the religious leaders, you are the trainers through your education/religious institutions and not the public school that's created by the human enemies of mankind. You then can dominate. It's all about dominating and gaining respect. The bully will always pretend he loves you if you let him come to your house 2 or 3 times and beat you down when he opens the door. But if he comes the 3rd time and you invite him in and you have an iron baseball bat to greet him with, beat him down to a pulp, you don't have to call the police. He is not coming back. And that is an example of domination. That is an example of control, and that is one example of getting respect. Now, it doesn't have to be that rash or that harsh, but you have to say, I'm in charge here. I demand respect here, and I expect to get it.
Now,
Continue,
Doc,
sir.
Doc, I study what you're saying, and I read the books of great minds like yours. But I come to understand that there are 3 elements that are dealing with how we think and how we act. And one is democracy. And I really want to get some understanding from you as to whether democracy works for African Americans, even where they're in the majority or where they're not in the majority.
You want me to answer? Now, let me tell you.
Let me do three, because I really want you to deal with it. And the other one is the fact that capitalism, which is the form of government that the economy works on capitalism here. Well, that's good for African Americans. And the third one is Christianity. These three things seems to be the overriding factors that are influencing governing African Americans. Are those three things there good for black folk?
Not as the way it's been designed to hurt them, and not as it was designed through their teaching for them to accept these false concepts and the demeaning concepts that make them more in love with their enemy than themselves. See, these are man-made doctrines, has nothing to do with real concepts of Christianity and brotherhood. These are man-made, what I call connotations, because of economic and political reasons. All the Christian concepts, all religions are man-made. God had nothing to do with it. All the economic systems are man-made. And the one that can help a group get more economic wherewithal is the one he's going to keep for himself and use you and me and Mr. Williams and others to help him become more economically secure, and we will have no money, no job, other than what we are given.
Doc, I've heard some learned people to say that black people don't do well in a democracy, that they really would do better with a king.
Well, I don't agree with that. Now, black people have never had an instance to live in a democracy. It is not practiced anywhere in the world, and especially not here in America. And that's why, viewers, I want you all to understand, now we're not going to be confronted in all the Elder Henderson Real News shows, organized, don't criticize. It's just going to be on this one next week. And thereafter, we are going to hit certain topics, give you the solutions, the problems, and how it will impact you for the next 200 or 300 years. But today, as we give a summary review, I am going to let my listeners and viewers and guests understand that you cannot have the old order, and don't be pretending that Christianity, democracy, and capitalism, as it works today, is going to give you some salvation. It is not. You have to create a new man, a new system, and dominate where you are in the majority after you train your own leaders. So, Mr. Socrates, those three areas you mentioned are good if you control them. But I must assure you, I don't know any blacks that are controlling anything in capitalism. I don't know any that's doing anything significant in Christianity. And the other one you mentioned was, what was that third one?
Democracy.
No such thing has never been practiced in America. Nowhere in the world where there were 2 or 3 different races in my readings. Nowhere that I know of. Now, there have been written material saying so, but there have been very limited practice where you have had democracy, Christianity, and capitalism for all the people. Now, Mr. Williams.
Yes, sir.
I believe that you want to give a few comments on this, and we want to hear it.
Yeah, I would like to know how you gentlemen feel that whether it be capitalism, democracy, or religion, Christianity, how it can be effective if the people are uneducated in either of those subjects. Capitalism, gimme, money, is somewhat easier understood than, say, a democracy. You need to understand the people you're voting for. Right now, we got 15-second commercials, 30-second commercials, sound bites of a person telling you they're on your team. You go out and hear them talk, and as we were discussing before the program, a senator talking about he wants to get a group of people together to come up with plans. So he doesn't have any plans. He needs a group of people to come up with plans to find jobs. And then Christianity, you throw that in, and just an example, I was trying to tell somebody the other day, sloth is mentioned in the Psalms in the New Testament. Sloth is a South American, Central American animal. How is that in a Bible? And you take it serious. This is one of the problems I have, is because people don't see the scripture where it says this is what do they call it? Inspired word of God. It's not God's word. It's inspired. So there's something there you're supposed to be looking for, which I believe is spiritual law. Just like gravity, it doesn't change. Spiritual law doesn't change. So if we want to make a difference in our communities, whether it be black, brown, white, or green, we need to respect these laws. And that's why we have so many problems, and you can't fix them and disrespect the laws.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Mr. Williams, I know you might disagree, but laws really don't mean very much.
No, I'm talking about God's laws.
Well, now, who
not
is
man's
God?
laws.
The question, who is God?
The creator of all things, the one who put gravity in place.
Well, that is
I am who I am.
That man uses when he doesn't know who created what.
Well, you got to kind of seek there, doctor, and if you seek, ye shall find, as I have. I'm not going to sit here and say God doesn't exist.
I didn't say that.
And I've sought God. I've sought God. God has shown me the truth. So what man believes, I rarely will agree with. But what God has shown me scares me.
Well,
there is a fear here. It's actually terrified, actually.
Well, let me tell you, Mr. Williams, I've been looking for God for a long time. Mm-hmm. I haven't found him yet.
I don't know.
But I've been seeking. I went to the seminary for 6 years, part-time, looking for him. Mm-hmm. And I had so many different names for God, so many different concepts through the Church of God in Christ, the Baptists, the Methodists. All of them have different gods and concepts as to what God will do for you and who he is.
I've been to all those churches.
And then Mr. Socrates here is a great Christian. He has affiliation with one of the greatest churches in Jackson, Mississippi, that's international in scope, and they have a different policy.
They still haven't read the book. And when I say read, they say the same scriptures over and over again for the last 50 years. And what kind of reading is that if I can show you something in that book you've not seen?
Well, you can always find something that's not going to be talked about because it is not in the interest of the person that's doing the talk.
That's
true. You don't talk about things that you don't promote and support. That's not going to help you get what you want. Now, Mr. Socrates, again, is with a famous international bishop that has the plan that's supposed to help people worldwide, especially in Hinds County, in Jackson, Mississippi, in the state of Mississippi, in the nation, and in the world, and he's supposed to be international in scope and have training programs that's going to teach leadership in and not everybody in the world, and teach his Christian followers how to be able to rule themselves through their collective actions, where they will gain respect as a Christian, as an international participant.
And I guess that's where I always run into that wall with me.
Well, I want you to do that.
We keep talking about groups of people, and we're talking about fixing something. Some people don't want to be involved with you because you're in a group. Some people don't want to be involved with your color. And these are the problems. It's the power of the word that nobody seems to respect anymore or understand. is the problem I see is we speak ourselves into this situation. We continuously speak ourselves into that situation. And as you mentioned, we rarely speak solutions. We just keep repeating the problems and pointing fingers and saying this. Well, Project Humanity has plans that focus on the problems with solutions, and is to direct us into a future where the kids will thrive, not us old people and our old ways, but the future needs to survive.
Hold on, Mr. Williams. I want to tell you right now, and viewers and listeners, he had just said that emphasis ought to be on solutions. He's exactly right. And that's why that's all you're going to hear. Every time you hear the Eld Henderson Real News Show, Organize, Don't Criticize, at the end of every show, we're going to give you some solutions that you can start using tomorrow that will change your status if you are not happy with what's going on in your life. But if you want to be an accommodationist, if you want to be an integrated person that lose your identity, if you want to be just like everyone else and give all your resources, 98% of them, to other folks, and not even have your own gas, your own food, your own water, you'll be like the Palestinians. You have to have your own state, folks. You have to have your own rules and regulations and work with others. After you take care of yourself, that's the way to get respect, and that's what we're going to talk about on the Eld Henderson Real News Show. And that's why today with these two guests, the third one might come in later, I told you that earlier, we're going to just let Mr. Socrates give us a little feeder on what Mr. Williams just said.
Well, I think, Doc, that clearly, if the three of us sitting here on this platform this evening can't come to a consensus of what the real problem is, it means to me that we have been indoctrinated to a point that African Americans will never come together. If we don't see a common enemy, if we don't see that the economic conditions that we find ourselves in and the quality of life that we enjoy as a whole, not the one or two that managed to escape. They didn't escape, they were allowed to leave so that they could be pointed at to say, if they can do it, why can't 98% of you do it? If we can't do that and come to an agreement that your plan is the one that we need to implement and understand the importance of that and deal with all opposition to it in the proper way, then we're never going to be able to move this race forward.
Well, you're partially correct, but now you are using a word that the human enemies of mankind like to use in the proper way. Using the word democracy, using words common defense, using the word tranquility for all the people. Those are words that are designed to exclude Mr. Williams, to exclude Mr. Socrates, to exclude Eldridge Henderson. You can't make it on those words as practiced. So you have to come up with similar words that means I am going to be determining the process. I am going to be creating the program that we're going to use, where I'm going to build myself, my people, to the point where others will want to come in and join me and not I join them. That's what it's all about. That's why you find the major races throughout the world have used that same policy. They say, I will make the decisions, I will take your resources, I will take your women. If you don't give me what I want, I will kill you. I will put you in slavery. I will burn you alive. I will hang you. I will do anything I want because I control two things that you don't control, and that's the court system and the military. On the local, state, and national and international level, and I'll fight to death to keep it.
Now, Doc, I understand, but at the same time, the ability for us to form the cohesiveness in our race and our community is important. It's critically important because we want people to join us in our attempt to improve the quality of life for black people throughout this world. And so we're going to have all kinds of opposition and all kinds of different philosophies and the new man and the old man, and as you said, all of that, but somehow we got to bring it all together.
Well, we must bring it all together. That's why we're going to have this Eldridge Henderson Real News Show, Organize, Don't Criticize, because you're going to find, sir, when you start doing just what you said, you're going to be in a position where your enemy is going to become respectful, whether he or she wants to do it or not. And when you get to the point where you pool your resources, and here, Mr. Williams here is a great man. He wants to go and buy a house in a gated community, and there are already 5 black folks up in there, and he is a millionaire, and they look at the meeting group and say, well, we already have 5. Mr. Williams can't come in. That is not the way it ought to be. If Mr. Williams has the economic resources, he should be able to go anywhere he wants. And he should have the power to destroy that kind of concept and move anywhere he wants in the world because of his connections, because of his power base. Use his military, use his banks, use his convention centers, use his hotels, and let other folks that don't want to work with you go about their business. And I guarantee you, if you lock in what you have, organize, and stop criticizing and want to be like your enemies, you will gain respect. Some don't believe it, and that's why, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about these things and give all of these solutions that you need to hear in the next 7 years so you can understand that if you don't change, it's going to be fire next time. No more flooding, folks, even though you're going to have a lot of rain. But fire going to get you next time. Mr. Williams?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of touch base on what you just said is you don't want to be like your enemies, right?
Of course not.
You end up doing these certain things, you're going to end up being like your enemies.
No, sir. No, sir.
If you do those things that I'm hearing, that power you want to have, that structure you're trying to create, it's based on what you've learned from your enemies. Now, what I propose is totally different. I propose to remove that power that they believe they have, that you've given them, and let's use the things I keep talking about. I'm always going to go back to what I've been taught, the understanding of gravity. That's a God power. Our words are power. Our unity is power. But when we talk about unity, I'm looking more so not on the appearance of you, but what you are actually talking about and what you say and what your actions demonstrate. So when I look for people to join my family, as Mr. Garrett said, we get to build our family. Shakti, one of my new brothers, very good person. That's a person I would consider I would want on my team going forward, even though he may be from a different location than I am. He carries the same spirit that I do. And those are the people that I'm looking for when I talk about family, because I've had plenty of people who look like me do me extra wrong.
Of course.
Whereas someone who doesn't look like me at all may lend a helping hand or offer some assistance in a time of need.
That's only, sir, because they want something from you.
It's
My
called,
experience has
it's a
been,
God
Mr.
thing. It's
Mr.
give and
Williams, God,
receive.
my toe. Sir, I have seen throughout my lifetime that any opponent that gives you a helping hand wants something from you, even just to keep you down
Really?
as you reach up to knock you down.
So you don't know nobody who might be trying to help somebody because they see potential in what they're doing, and they feel like, you know what, if I support them in their accomplishing dreams, then God will bless me.
No, you don't see that here in America.
You don't
see that in Europe.
I see it every
there
day.
are individuals
Really?
that they will support temporarily. But when it comes to a group, you're not going to find anyone in the world that's not black that's going to support the total black man, the total black woman, collectively. They're going to use that separate but unequal status and give you an opportunity to marry his daughter because you are a millionaire. And my son or my daughter, or Mr. Socrates' son or daughter, who is a plumber or small businessman that's not rich, can't play basketball, can't run football, can't hit a tennis ball, not a millionaire, my mortal enemy, my little, what I call secretary, my little babysitter, not going to be coming to me. We allow this to happen because this is by design. My experience has been if you have a young man that is a potential star football player, he is going to be recruited to be a star at one of the major universities in America or somewhere in the world. He is going to be given an escort as a tutor, as a friend, to help him blend into this new society. Even if he can't spell football or basketball, he's going to remain on the team. He's going to be supported. He's going to be well advertised if he can run that ball or shoot that ball. And just before he gets that $18 or $200 million contract, he's going to get married to that tutor, to that academic aide. And they're going to have that money locked down. After he or she plays, goes the females too, that's famous in these areas, in entertainment, sports, and others. After they get locked down for 5 or 6 years, and most of them do it before, they start having a child or two. And then within 3 to 7 years, there's a major controversy called divorce. And those little models, those little tutors, those little academic aides say, I'm going to keep the children. And this poor black female or this poor black football or basketball player entertainer has to go back home to Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, New York City, Baltimore, Maryland, and live with his mother.
You been following me around or something?
I might have. If you're guilty, you're guilty. Now,
Guilty.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, viewers and listeners, you all don't like to hear this kind of thing.
I didn't know we were trying to marry a white woman.
That's what you're going to get.
It.
We're going to give you the real news, and then we're going to give you solutions so you don't have to fall for these gimmicks. Learn how to pool your resources. Train your leaders in areas where you're in the majority. Plan from birth to death. Plan for 300 or 400 generations for your children. Others will do what they have to do to take care of themselves. And of course, if they need some help, you can help some move forward. But you shouldn't give them what you have to weaken your position of dominance. Those that can't maintain the battle will lose it. Matter of fact, they won't even win not one of the wars. They might win a battle on the hill somewhere. But at the end, the one with the power is going to divide the area, divide the country, and take the economic resources, take them from you, and have you do the manual labor to dig it, to move it, to assemble it. And they are going to get rich, and they're going to just keep you barely alive and strip more and more of your rights from you and say, we are Christians, we are capitalists, we believe in democracy. Hogwash. Organize, ladies and gentlemen. That's why you won't ever hear me criticizing people. I give facts. Only facts. Mr. Socrates, I see you are looking down and you're thinking about, well, I believe this man must be wrong or right. I don't know what's on your mind, but you're looking like you are trying to reflect
Doc,
on
I'm
something.
listening very intensely. Now, I get it. I get it completely and totally that we as a race of people are not doing well. And I get it that all of the things that we came through demonstrates that we must move toward a common plan, the one that you are espousing here and have done for over the years, because we're not doing well. And I get it that policy, the ones that are creating policy, that are controlling all of us, have put no policy in place designed to benefit us.
That's what they're supposed to do.
And that's what they have done, is
Exactly.
not put any in there. I'll take you back to J. Edgar Hoover and the policies that he put out in Section 8 housing in the Watts riots in California in '73. And I'll take you into the policy about crack cocaine, Henderson versus cocaine. And I'll take you to the common day policies that are created by uninsured motorists and child support payments. All of these policies are designed to keep the poor poor.
Now, Mr. Socrates, here you are talking about some of your distant relatives. You know Mr. Hoover, one of the presidents, the FBI chief. About 6 or 7 of those presidents were black men. We call them now mulattoes. We know that Eisenhower had a lot of pigmentation in him that was not European. And many others.
I didn't know that.
We knew that. I didn't know that either.
Listen to me.
I missed that.
All you have to do is study their history, look at their relatives, where they came from, look at their pigmentation, look at who they denied when they got in these positions where they were the leaders of the world, and then look how they made people think that they were just like they were, where they castigated black and people of color. When they went to fight them, they would kill them, bomb them, just like they're doing now in the Middle East. Bomb the civilians, killing women and children
So you
in
think,
World War II, World War I.
so you think it's more about color and not money?
Well, that's where you kill the color, you're going to get the money.
I'm talking about they killing light-skinned people over there right now
Where?
in Israel.
Oh, there are a few that's going to be killed. But when you look at the numbers in the end, the people that have the biggest bomb, the fastest planes,
Ukraine?
are going to win. That is not for propaganda in Ukraine and Russia. Those are the same people.
I feel it too.
That's like 2 black folks fighting against each other. One lives in Chicago and one in Mississippi.
But it's
and
still-
50 years ago, the boy in Chicago came from Mississippi. He fighting his cousin.
So it's still a war, and it's still racially one color fighting the same color. So when I look at it is, we have to get away from this racial thing. It's about money.
You're not going to ever get away from
It's about
racism.
money. They keep you thinking it's about race when it's
I don't
really
think it's about race.
You
I know
keep
it's about
saying it's
money
about
too.
race. It's
but
really
still,
about
you
money.
got to be racial and control the money too, and the leadership.
Well,
Look out
the
for your
deal
own
is that Dr. Henderson is saying that where your race is not empowered, you don't have the opportunity to control economics. You don't have the ability to do it. If you're living in Rankin County, Mississippi, you can't control economics because you don't have the numbers and the ability. But where we are in the majority in Hinds County, where we control the school boards and the school system and the board of supervisors and the city council and the airport authority, over $1 billion flows through black folks' hands that they make decisions on.
Hold it, Mr. Socrates. You say over 1 billion flows through black hands.
Straight through it.
That is possibly true, but only about 10%.
Okay.
It is like the lady I talked to yesterday that works in a local bank. Oh, I was praising her. She could get a handful of money and just look at it and look like it was just parred. She would count it so fast. I say, I know you really sleep good at night. Say, you sleep real good, don't you? I say, you have money in your hand all day. And this woman cussed me out and say, blank, blank, this ain't my money, this their money. Hell, I'm not making but the minimum wage here. And you were here embarrassing me. Others were in the line. And I was then about to tell her, I'm not here to embarrass you. I'm telling you that you're in a position where you understand that this job not going to be available next year. It's going to be gone. We're not going to need you as a teller, as a cashier. I gave her my card. I said, you call me. I want to get you into a training program where you can make a livable wage. Because before we got through talking about what I just mentioned, she told me, I'm doing all right. This is my second job. I said, how many children you have? I asked those kind of crazy questions. What you want to know that for? I said, how many do you have? I have 5. I said, are you married? No, I'm not married now. Now, I know I shouldn't ask strangers that, but it's just to show me and show them that you have to start thinking about your future, because if your future is stagnated to the point of no return, those 4 or 5 children you have that you have to neglect 18 hours a day going to raise themselves, or that poor grandmother going to raise them, and she is so sick and broke herself, she can't take care of herself.
Now, Doc,
Yes,
you seem to indicate that the money that black folk are controlling, that they're not really controlling.
They're not controlling not one penny.
That $1 billion that I outlined, they are not controlling.
Of course
it.
not. You know they're not controlling it. They know they're not controlling it. When you have that kind of money, the people that control things are usually the governor, the lieutenant governor, the legislature, and the Speaker of the House. They determine who gets the contracts through their henchmen. They determine who is going to make that decision where this money is spent, because they put the boards together, and you're not going to find these black folks that are handling this money in a majority on any of those boards where they have to spend over $50.
So what good does it do us to put black people in these positions?
Well, it's not going to do very much good until you start training your own leaders. And you're not going to get them from the public schools, because public school is set up for 10% of the people. You're going to have to train your leaders in your religious institutions and in your community organizations, and teach them the principles where they have to be what I call superior in their thinking, and look out for their interests, the interests of their friends and relatives, the interests of their state, nation, city, and county, and make decisions and be leaders for all the people, where you can actually promote the general welfare of the people. Look out for their economic development. Look out for what we call equal access to education, and not you give me, as a teacher, $30,000 a year, and give the other professors at another university that's teaching the same thing $75,000, $125,000. Keep my kid from going where the money is, where the technology is, and then tell me you can't get employed because you're not qualified. That is not good politics. So if you count the money, it goes through your hand, and you can't decide who's going to get it, who's going to get the contract. You know a lot about contracts.
I do.
I've followed you for years. You've been denied a lot of contracts, and you're one of the most qualified contractors around.
On the blacklist by black people.
That's what I don't want to talk about. It hurts to talk about it, but I want you to talk about it because I'm going to invite you back on this show, and you got to tell these folks how you have been discriminated against because you're not an Uncle Tom. And we're going to talk about these Uncle Toms and the Sovereignty Commission. We're going to talk about the Klan, the city councils, the churches that endorsed all kinds of redlining, endorsed the fact that the banks won't loan you any money. And they're not supposed to loan you any because they're set up not to. And that's why I teach and others teach, Dr. Claude Anderson and many others, that you ought to have your own bank if you have your own money. And black folks spend money like rain. They give 98% of their funds to other people throughout the counties, the cities, and the states, and the nations of the world. We're the greatest consumers in the world, and ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about how you can pool those resources and build those one-stop centers where you can train 10, 15,000 people to be prepared for the next 30 years in education and training strategies. Not for today. You have to always train for 30, 40 years in the future. You have what we call a prioritized 5, 10, 15, 30-year plan in leadership, economic development, religion, politics. And you won't have to worry about these kind of politicians Mr. Williams and Mr. Socrates talking about. Talk about we got problems, we're going to have to put a plan together. Hell, you don't need a plan. You don't need a plan. You just need to go and do what you know is best for yourself and best for your country and best for your family. Why you want to put a committee together and study something where you can go down to the back room somewhere and pull out a book that did the same thing 10 years ago or 30 years ago? That's what politicians do. That's what church leaders do. That's what educators do. Let's do a study. All they're going to do is give their friend a $200 or $300 or $2 million contract to do that, and they're going to put it in a big old book and put it back on the shelf, and the problem going to be worse. That's what we're going to talk about, and we want people to share with us. We're going to have some call-in shows, and we're going to have guests, and not all famous people like Mr. Williams and Mr. Socrates. We're going to get people from the street. And we're going to be like Jesus if we have to call a homeless person up here and put them on this stand and find out what their needs are. Get a prostitute or get one of these down-out people that just confused mentally and let them tell us what the problems are. And you won't have to get someone from Harvard or Yale or Princeton to make their policies to help them because they are not going to do it properly. Not going to do it. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving down to 30 seconds. And I want to tell you that the Eld Henderson Real News Show is not going to be as controversial as it is today, but we're going to argue with the guests in a positive manner. But our job is to give solutions in those areas of activity and show you cannot depend on the human enemies of mankind to do anything for you other than maintain the status quo. And that's what they're supposed to do. People that have are supposed to do everything they can to keep it. Those that don't have need to do everything they can to get it from the people that have it, because they are enriching themselves, making you sick politically, economically, socially, causing you to die young, causing you to have all kinds of stressors and mental illness, causing you to leave your family, and causing you not to even love yourself. And then hear you talking about, I'm a Christian, I love everybody. Anyone that says that he or she loves everyone usually hates themselves. want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You can contact us by calling if you need a speaker. Mr. Socrates, Mrs. Williams will be glad to come with me and others and talk to you at your school, your church, your community organization. Right now, this show goes to 139 different nations throughout the world in all 50 states. And we want to know that if you want to talk to us, call us 601-201-1957 or email us at CLU369 what is that one? Gmail. Yeah, gmail.com. And you can call 1-800-492-5186 and say, we want you all to come and speak to us. Now, what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, when you invite us to speak, we're going to give you the non-radio and television version because we are not going to give all the secrets to you on social media. We're not going to do like the present leaders, that's so-called organization leaders in our communities, where they go to the big hotels, the big convention centers, and let the human enemies of mankind record their secret meetings, their board meetings, and all that kind of thing. You got to create your own centers, one-stop centers, your own golf courses, your own banks, your own credit unions, your own businesses, your own international ventures where you control and dominate Pacific interests. I better say Pacific industries that you are spending all your money in. You ought to control it. You ought to control it. So that's it, gentlemen. And I want to thank you all for coming, Mr. Williams.
Well, thank you for having us, sir.
Mr. Socrates. And I want you all to know that I've been real gentle with you, very gentle. And next time when I get you on here, you might get the same thing. But at the end, though, I want to tell you, I still love you.
I love you
Love
too,
you
sir.
too, Doc.
That's what I do, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
And don't forget, I got some plans you need to check out.
Okay.
Take